was young, I asked my mother, will I be happy? And the mother said, "Que sera, sera." I mean, you either will or you won't. It'll just happen. What happens, happens. So, que sera, sera is Spanish, I think, and its translation is "what will be," or you could elaborate on that. Say everything happens for a reason, always perfectly on time. It may not seem that way. But it's a useful belief. Try and install this belief in your mind through brainwashing, through affirmations in the mirror. Do it somehow. Pay a hypnotist. And relevant to this is Albert Einstein said God does not play dice. And now, I don't know how he knew that, but I agree with him. There's no such thing as random. Oh, my God. What a statement, eh? I've written a list of things here that people might think is random. The roll of a dice. Is it random? Well, the roll of a dice involves so much complexity that it looks random, but it isn't. Same for roulette. It looks random, but it's so close to random that the ordinary person can't tell the difference. But it looks random, but it isn't. A zillion sperm trying to fertilise an egg. Looks random, but it isn't. Hurricanes and typhoons looks random. Which houses get blown over by hurricanes? Which houses get flooded? It looks random. It's so close to random, it may as well be random, but it isn't. Volcanic eruptions looks random, but they're not. Earthquakes looks random, but they're not. And the really big one, I think, from a scientific point of view, is radioactive decay. Oh, now, I am actually, this kind of video, I'm fleshing it out with information at every level. On the one hand, I'm talking to, cutting-edge scientists. On the other hand, I'm talking to people in the helping industry who need more information than most. And I'm also talking to the everyday person who really has got other things. They think that, well, life's too short to become some kind of specialist helper. Life is too short to become a Mother Teresa. Life is too short to become a motivational speaker like Anthony Robbins. And life's too short. Each their own. If you're absolutely fascinated by academics, that you want to be a cutting-edge scientist in this field, or a historian, or an archaeologist, each their own. But the percentage of people who get involved in these incredibly specialised, PhD thesis areas, it's not for everyone, is it? It's some people. If you have a calling to be a scientist, fine. If you have a calling to be a theologian, fine. And also, this male-female debate. Should women be preachers? Debate. I think now, on average, as things stand, more men may want to be theologians than women. Okay, on average. That average might change over time. In 100 years' time, it might be the other way round. But anyone who has, my view, anyone has a calling. What does calling mean? If you look at a dictionary, about having a calling, what would it say? I haven't looked it up. But how do you define having a calling? Yeah. I think I've had a calling to do something. I can't pin it down right now. I've had a calling to end up. Well, no, I digress. I digress a lot. We all have a narrative about our past. A childhood. We all have a narrative, a story. Now, the narrative is a story. The facts are a series of happenings. Event 1, event 2, event 3, event 4. The facts are event, sequence of events. Now, the story we tell about that sequence of events, we either tell a story that makes these events seem horrendous, or you can retell the story to make it sound not too bad. Now, I've sort of retold my childhood story. My mum and dad said, well, look, the world's in a mess. It's little Martin, 3-year-old Martin. In transaction analysis, there's a concept of the little professor. So perhaps little Professor Martin, unencumbered with the nonsense of the world. My parents said, well, look, the world's in a mess. We haven't got a clue. Martin, it's over to you. Do you think you can fix the world's problems? And little Martin said a very stupid thing. Oh, well, Mum, I'm not sure, but no, you obviously have confidence in me. I'll think about it and see what I can do. Bloody hell. I mean, the rest of the story is unbelievable. my friend Alexander said, you could not make it up. So anyway, narrative. We all have a narrative about childhood. I've sort of lost where I'm going with this, and that narrative can be rewritten. And yes, so what we do in life is all children are abused. A lot of child abuse is unaware. Yes, the aware child abuse hits the headlines, but the unaware child abuse does not. We all have experienced loss, and loss has to be dealt with by grieving. We all get angry. Getting anger off your chest is that. Harvey Jackins talked about the Non-Cathartic society. Basically, in order to recover from a setback or a breakdown, whatever, one has to go through a process of catharsis, where you get something off your chest. The brain is then empowered to think better. You solve the problem, move on. So some very important things. In a non-cathartic society, we're discouraged from grieving. Now, there's a difference between floods of tears and crocodile tears and proper grieving. Proper grieving is cathartic. It's healing. It heals the physical and emotional body, freeing up the mind to think better. And also raging in the right way. The problem with anger, I think it was Socrates or somebody said, any damn fool can lose their rag, but to actually get angry at the right thing in the right way for the right reasons is an absolute art form. It is so difficult, well, in the modern world, it's so difficult angry in the right way, about the right things, etc., that everyone's absolutely petrified about anger escalating out of control and somebody ends up in hospital or dead. So in the UK, we try to get this lid on things. Certainly, we try to get a lid on anger, and that can be counterproductive. Same with grief in a different way. The three main emotions apparently are anger, fear, and sadness. Or anger, fear, and misery. And if anger, fear, or misery, or all three, are not handled right, things actually steadily get more and more difficult and complex. And Harvey Jackins invented reevaluation co-counselling called RC, and John Heron thought it was a bit heavy-handed. So John Heron, a British guy, University of Surrey at Guildford, invented a softer version of co-counselling called CCI, Co-Counselling International. And they seem to be, all of these things have their time and fade away, but the RC literature is very all this useful literature is sort of like, it's not mainstream. I mean, Harvey Jackins' literature is wonderful. For example, Harvey Jackins said all sex is dysfunctional. Oh my God, how controversial! I agree with him. Sex is it's so easy. Even making up sex. After an argument, making up with sex, not a good idea. Well, I don't know. Whatever. But these things need discussion in the right places. All sex being dysfunctional maybe does not have to be a sort of nationwide discussion. But theologians and scientists, and government theologians, government scientists, and those lay people who are interested should get together and sort of discuss these things. If Harvey Jackson is right and all sex is mostly dysfunctional, what lessons, what conclusions do we have to nudge the whole of our nation, the whole of the planet in a better direction? But anyway, so co-counselling literature. I think they still have a monthly magazine, the co-counselling community, called Present Time. I don't need to go there. I've sort of covered this ground in different ways. But anyone interested in, you know, what is a non-cathartic society and what to do about it? If Present Time is still a monthly magazine, try and Google it, see if it exists, and get a copy. It could be a bit of an eye-opener. Another piece of literature which is off mainstream radar is Alice Miller. Alice Miller, she wrote loads of books, all on the same theme, that children are being abused unawarely. Well-intentioned parents, well-intentioned teachers are actually caused. There's a Philip Larkin poem called "This Be the Verse," and I can't remember it verse to verbatim, but my version, there's two verses. Verse 1, my version is, they fuck you up, your mum and dad. They may not mean to, but they do. They pass on all their hang-ups and a few extra fuss for you, Now, in my family, my parents put up with absolute incredible shit. And, I'm great. Yes, they gave me an enormous number of problems to deal with. I wish I hadn't had to deal with these problems. But I can see clearly that I had a better childhood than they did. My childhood was in some ways pretty damn rotten with compensations, but my mother's childhood and my father's childhood and aunts and uncles, the aftermath of the Second World War, living through the Second World War. My father was full of anecdotes. In South Wales, where the Germans were bombing South Wales to the coal or something, my surname's Camden, Martin Camden, right? The Camden family were all in the air shelter, all generations, children up to old ladies, and my father described it like this. He said, all these people in this bomb shelter, the bombs were dropping, wee, wee, and the women, certainly the older women, were wailing and crying their eyes out, chaos, wee, another Camden family gone, wee, another Camden family gone, wee, fucking hell. And some of us think we have it hard. I'm going all over the place a bit, but there's a guy on the internet somewhere, obviously a thalidomide victim, no arms and legs. Well, he's got a couple of deformed feet.